Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have David Haskins, with the founder and CEO of Drive Law Firm Marketing. Welcome, David.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ken.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about you and your company, how you got started, because and just tell us all about your journey, how you got where you are now.
Sure. Yeah. My company's Drive Law Firm Marketing. We're formerly Haskins and Company, if you may be familiar with that. We primarily do web-based demand marketing and case acquisition for law firms. And what that usually translates into, what you're familiar with, SEO, Google LSA ads, any kind of demand-based advertising versus a push-based advertising. I got my start helping a dear friend, David Aylor, back in 2009, back in the last recession.
Yeah.
Brilliant idea to start a law firm. During the last recession, I had just graduated, thought I was hot shit with my undergraduate business degree, walking into, the biggest recession since the 70s. And wouldn't you know, I wasn't able to find a job. My friend started his practice. I sort of started volunteering just to have something to do. And we came up with the idea to do some grassroots marketing in the Spanish community. I'm half Spanish. I speak Spanish. I have a political background, and it just fit very well. Just getting in local community events and hitting the ground basically, just like a political campaign. Well, fast forward 2 years, and I had taken on multiple different aspects of marketing, even working on trial work. And my main focus at that point had become digital marketing and the website. And we grew the firm to 4 offices by year 3. And by 2012 to 13, I branched out and started my own thing. Kept David on as he's still our longest standing client to this day. And we've helped him grow, and we've grown along the way. But yeah, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. This is just naturally in my blood at this point.
And if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't your father a lawyer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my father was an attorney. He was sort of, in the 80s and 90s, general practice attorney. So he did a murder trial, and then he did a medical malpractice trial, and then he'd do like a real estate closing and write somebody's will up. I actually have at my home office, I actually have his desk from his law office, and if you slide out the little writing pad at the top, it's got his fee schedule from 1991 taped into the top. Crazy, like write up a will, $75, add the dependents, $10, or $5 per child or something like that. Yeah. So it's cool. And he was also in the state legislature, so I kind of grew up in law and all that all my life. It's just naturally in my blood.
Yeah. So you're pretty much digital marketer, helping firms, get on the first page of Google and get into maps and LSA and PPC. There's so many facets of it. What do you think? I want to ask you a couple of questions. I know we sent you some questions, but I'm going to ask you, me, I like to throw curveballs, so I'm going to ask you some things not on there.
Of course.
So do you think a landing page, and I'm going to get more into other stuff, but this is some things like I'm sitting in the shower or whatever, and I'm thinking, I want to do this podcast with David Day, and I always forget to ask when I do with some guy with SEO, I always forget to ask him this question. Should you have a lead magnet on your homepage? Because that's the most like a book or a report or anything. Because I've heard both people say different things.
You can have it there. And if you have the kind of person who is more research oriented, they're not ready to take action. It could just be, another colleague that goes, oh, that's an interesting thing. They might download it. Have something that acts as a follow-up. But generally, people who are searching in our campaigns that we do, which are mainly bottom of the funnel search phrases, right? People are typing car accident lawyer near me. They're not typing, how do I appeal a decision by the adjuster, right? They're ready. They're looking for the solution. They're looking for the provider to give them that solution. Bottom of the funnel, we want them to take action. So if you have a lead magnet, sure, add it to the homepage, but don't add it to the homepage and then go, God, why is my lead magnet not performing? Lead magnets are going to perform when people are being prompted with that, right? So in the area of PI or car wrecks, there's not a lot of push marketing that you can do to intercept someone right at that moment that they have that need, right? It's top of mind awareness, brand recognition, you being just sort of the ubiquitous choice in the field that they would think of when they have that issue. Lead magnets and stuff work a lot better in the sort of longer term sales funnel type areas, like estate planning is a perfect example. You can do you could target, people over a certain income who have children under a certain age, and they'd be your perfect target demographic. You can hit them with lead magnets and do that long term sales process to build, and you're building demand at that point. They're not out Googling, I need an estate planning lawyer or something like that.
So out of the 4 sections, I mean, you've got the LSAs at the top, then you got the PPC, then you got the Google Maps or whatever you call it, the local, and then you got the organic. Out of those 4, which 4 do you think are the most important for a law firm?
So this is where we start giving some very contradictory advice than what people are used to hearing. Law firms are used to seeing this is how the typical SEO company setup goes. You hire the company and then they give you a report that goes, if you type this phrase, you show up number 4. And if you type this phrase, you're number 6. We got you first page for this phrase. And it's always kind of funny to me. All of those reports, for the most part, they're only taking the organic ranking, meaning below the LSA, below the PPC, below the map. Number 1 in that organic spot, if your report says you're number 1, you have 3 LSAs, sometimes 1 or 2 PPC ads above that. So that's 5, 3 map spots, which is the biggest real estate on the first page. And it's great. It's contextual. You can see this is a local firm. They have a reputation. They got, 50 reviews, 200 reviews, 4.9 stars, all sorts of reasons for you to pick people up in those top 8 spots. Then the quote unquote number 1 position is actually the number 9 on the page, right. When you get down to it. So when somebody says, hey, look, we got you number 5. Well, okay, so now you're number 13, 14, right? And if they add a people also ask section or a little news section, then you're even further down. What we go after, what we've found the most effective places for conversion are, of those 4 sections, LSA, PPC, map, organic, it is hopscotch. LSA, and it is pay for performance. PPC, if you're doing a local PI campaign, I wouldn't go after just a standard keyword-based PPC anymore. LSA is fantastic, and it's pay for performance. So if you get 20 leads in a month, or you got 3 leads in a month, you're not wasting any money anywhere. You're only going to be paying for your qualified leads. And then the map pack, really, in my opinion, the map pack is the most effective. It signifies to somebody, this is someone local. You automatically have that trust. If you can win the review game and have the highest review count, there's not what we found, there's not really like a distribution of leads amongst the map pack. As long as you have a solid review lead, even if you're in the number 3rd spot, if it's somebody with 80 reviews, 60 reviews, and you got 220 reviews, you're getting first call of virtually everybody that comes through that map pack. So now you're in the biggest real estate on the page, and you have the best reputation of the 3 options. And then after that, if people are doing more research, if it's a more complex case and people have a deeper research or a longer research pattern they're doing, we'll see people coming through that. If they're researching medical, complex medical cases, wrongful death, that sort of thing, we will see that. But for your everyday run of the mill standard PI cases, LSAs, and MAP.
Yeah, it's like I had a lawyer that just joined PILMA Gold, our basic membership, not the masterminds. And he said, I just don't know where to start. I said, you go for the low hanging fruit. I said, the number one thing you need to be doing is getting Google reviews. I said, because if you can get in that three, I call it the 3-pack, the map section. Yeah. I said, people, 87-90% of people look at that. They look at your reviews before they make a decision to even call somebody, much less hire them. Yeah, I do it. When I was looking at something the other night, and I know I was looking at a body shop because I stupidly hit a tree the other day. Yeah, after the hurricane, I decided everybody was parked everywhere, and I was trying to get around this truck that was doing that and trying to be nice and not get, and then I hit another tree. But that's what I look for, man. I looked there. This guy had everybody killed. He had 220 reviews. The next one had 13. And then you would go down and read them all and said, these guys are fair, they're quick, they're honest. Somebody that's good, fair, and honest, quick. So, I hired them, and I actually took it over there last Wednesday. They did the work. I got it back yesterday afternoon, and it was perfect. It was perfect. So
for us, those reviews are so important that I will, probably sell myself out of being hired more than anybody else in the industry, but I will flat out tell a firm, like I actually had this come up with a firm last week. He said, we're trying to rank for, I won't tell you the city, but so we're trying to rank for this town. And then we also have this office in the suburbs. This town is 5 million plus population. They got 16 reviews. You know what I did? They got 16 reviews and they got a 3.2 rating. And without even knowing the area, I typed in DMV and his town, and I showed him the Department of Motor Vehicles has a 4.1. I told him, your law firm has a worse customer service rating than the DMV. People are not, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to put you up there. You get the worst reputation per, Google and per how people online are going to judge you. I flat out said, I wouldn't focus on this main metro 5+ million population where you need 400 reviews to make up the difference. I said, let's look at this other territory. You got this suburb office, and we looked at the population and the demographics. And I said, you don't even have a Google My Business out there. We need to do a Google My Business out there. You could start getting cases after you hit the maps and it was like 45 reviews. Instead of trying to compete with people with 10 times that many reviews, the guy's not doing 100 case a month volume firm.
Right.
He needs to get 5 to 10 more cases a month than he's getting right now. It's like, steer clear of the metro for now. Start over here. Start in the in that area, because frankly, if you don't win that review game, a lot of the work that we do is almost waste. You're not really going to get as much gain from it. You're not going to be able to take advantage of that ranking if you don't have that reputation to go along with it.
How important do you think it is to post something like a picture, video, or article or something on your Google business page every week? Does that help at all?
Yeah, that's helpful. Especially if you're writing, a little snippet that matches and is sort of optimized for the practice areas that you're trying to attract as well. You can also link back to pages on your site, but also it just kind of helps people would see it as being updated and fresh instead of just seeing, a headshot from 1998 like I've seen on so many lawyer websites.
Yeah. And talking about LSAs, here I'm going to brag on our PILMA. I got all our PILMA people that would listen to me back in it before they even opened it up. But when they were starting to vet, because you have to vet them, we got our people in and got them vetted, and they just, I think it started hitting, it hits different towns, different times, but they started opening up in like September. I don't remember what year, a couple years ago.
2020, yeah.
Yeah. Our members just killed it. We had guys. I told them, I said, it's going to last about 90 days. I said, but get it while it's good, and they didn't believe me. But so after about 90 days to 120 days, all the other lawyers figured it out, start
Yeah.
getting in there, and now they all crying. I want more. I put a big
bet
budget in, but I just don't get enough,
So here's the secret to how LSAs are working right now. Here's what we found. The setup for LSAs is different from traditional PPC. Old school PPC ads was this. Google says, we got a machine. You got to figure out how it works. You got to figure out how to make it work best for you. You got to figure out what words you want, what words you want to exclude, what territories you want, how much you want to bid, how much the competitors are bidding. You got to figure out how to operate the machine. You got to usually hire somebody to operate a machine for you. But we got this ad bidding machine for you. And when we find a search that matches your bid parameters and they click the button, you pay us. I don't give a shit if they got a case or they're trying to sell you a copier. You got to pay us. That's the deal. They click, you pay. That's it. The new setup with LSAs is, hey, we know that you're in this business, in this service, in this area. We believe that we have potential customers for you. We'd like to send them live on a phone call directly to your office. And if we were wrong about our guess, about our assumption that these would be a relevant lead for you, we'll give you a fee credit so you don't pay for it unless it is a relevant lead. So it's the closest thing that Google's done in terms of sort of like sharing the incentive or aligning the incentive with the firm. The trade-off is if I'm Google and I send you a call and you don't answer the call, then you're costing me money. And, like Kevin O'Leary says on Shark Tank, you're dead to me, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it so many times that really what we've found is, other than the standard practice of you have to have your budget in place, you have to have available budget to spend, you have to have a high enough competitive click, all that stuff's a given, right? What's going to make the difference is the answer rate. If you get your answer rate up, if you're in a competitive market, you got to have a 90-95% answer rate or higher, or you're not going to be able to get the calls. And what we found, a lot of people have this experience. They say, man, I got into LSAs, that thing hit like the jackpot, and then I don't know what happened, but it all dried up. And I've gotten 2 LSA calls since January or something. We've seen it in client accounts. We noticed a client account after 3 days went 3 days with no leads, and we dug into the call recordings, checked it out, did a little spot check, and they missed 2 calls one afternoon, 2 in the morning, and then that was it. Then they went 2 more days with no calls. Google took them out of rotation. They were getting, pretty decent 3-4 calls a day. And we called the client. We're like, hey, what happened? And the clients, one of the clients had a family member in the hospital, and he was receiving those LSA calls on his phones. He wanted to answer them all. So it was just that easy of just missing 4 calls in a row. You're basically like, cut out of the family. We were actually able to discuss with the Google LSA admin team and get the account sort of reset so that it wouldn't get counted, the missed calls wouldn't get counted against them. And as soon as we did that, they started showing up in rotation again, and they kept their answer rate up, and they were totally fine.
You were actually able to talk to somebody at Google?
Yeah. It's LSA admin team is not very helpful in giving you correct information. They will just tell you every excuse in the book why you're not getting calls. But we have found a way to sort of get clients a second chance if they get kicked out of rotation.
Yeah. And tell me if you ever heard of this. I heard of one lawyer did the same thing, like missed 2 calls, and just put them down at the bottom. So he spends like $20,000 and just takes, instead of just taking PI leads, he takes all kinds of leads. Yep. He's built it back up. He spent.
I know who it is. I've looked in that market. I know exactly who it is. I've looked in that market. I've seen it. Yeah.
And it worked. And it got him back. Back.
Yeah, that is a good strategy. So essentially what you're saying, because this is what I researched this, they were in the PI category, maybe the PI car accident category. The calls dried up. And then they said, give me the general law firm category and I'll answer the phone. I'll pay you the, much lower cost per call, but I will start answering and you'll see my answer rate go up. And I'll also start getting the PI calls again. And yeah, it's a brilliant hack on the on the answer rate. So yeah, that works too.
Yeah, I thought that was ingenious. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'm smart enough to figure that out. I would have never thought of that, but it worked, you know. So here's the other thing is that I know, because I'm working with some firms you're working with, that you really got into this intake because, and I found this over the years, lawyers say, you know, I just can't, you know, I'm not signing up any cases, not signing up any cases. You know, and so like our masterminds, I used to do the calls, those calls, but now we're doing online because most of them have got it fixed. They're actually, I mean, they're doing better.
Yeah.
But we did a deal and we have like 25% of our lawyers never answer an online inquiry.
Yeah.
And then probably another 30% of them wait over an hour. And so to me, you got 55% of lawyers that are paying all this money to guys like you, and they're getting online inquiries, and they're not even, you know, I think you tell me, I think you got 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing online inquiries, I mean, you know what I like to do when we're going into a market is I go on NOLO, submit an inquiry, because you'll get the top 5, you know, 4 or 5 that are all sharing the leads, and you'll see what the other intake results are like. We also do secret shops of competitors on their online on contact form, chat, and on phone. We do this like comprehensive intake audit. But yeah, the intake program started, you know, when I started in David Aylor's office, we were in a recession, and frankly, we were trying to just serve a poor population with expensive professional services in the budding of a recession. But the name of the game was, it has to work. It has to work cheap, and it's got to work quick if we're going to keep doing it. We couldn't set aside $50,000 and do a, you know, billboard splash for 6 months across town and see how that turned out. Like, we needed to go like the Kinko's, print some flyers and hand them out at a community event to see if it works, see if we can get some calls on we had this track phone and called it the Caliente line. That was the Spanish hotline, the Caliente line. So everything that I evaluate, every time that I look at an opportunity or a strategy, I have a cynic's mind. I just immediately try to look for every reason why it's going to fail, every problem that we could have, every reason why it's going to actually cost more than it's supposed to. And so, like, pains me when we do lead tracking, and then we see and hear some of the results that we've seen, that after a few years of sort of trying to give some guidance or give some help to clients, we created an entire standalone service in the intake accelerator where we can address these issues, like what I call lead leak, which is, you know, basically taking all of the total possible cases that you could have signed up in a month and try to track down where the ball could have been dropped. And then, you know, if you have your total possible cases could have been signed, and then you subtract the signed cases that you actually did get from that would give you your lead leak. And there's so many places, like, but I mean, even just the contact form, that's just the beginning of it. Like, just the disconnect between, I mean, sometimes I've seen it, something as simple as how the phone VoIP system is programmed to handle a call during hours versus after hours versus how many rings before it goes to a rollover, before it goes to the call center. Then how does it ring at the call center? I mean, you might not realize it, but people could be sitting for the phone with the phone ringing for like 45 seconds or a minute. And then if your call center is busy, which is happening a lot these days, they're going to hear a message that says like, oh, your call is so important to us, we're about to get to it. And it's kind of like,
yeah,
so important you didn't answer me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, do you advocate? I mean, I know they got software out there now that you can, with your phone companies like Ring Central and different ones, where it'll tell you how many people hung up. I mean, before you answered, things like that. I call them drop calls or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, really, as a starting point, when I talked to law firms about this, I gave from this advice. Who said, we're not sure if we're ready for all this. I said, don't do all our intake service. Just do this. You already have call rail. Set aside 2 hours, your lunch hour, whatever. Just go through your call rail dashboard and listen to phone calls and see if that's exactly how you would have handled things, if you'd have handled things different. And don't listen to the calls that are 45 minutes long. Those are good calls, right? That's probably a good call. Listen to the ones that are 22 seconds long and 2 minutes and 28 seconds long and 1.5 minutes long and 45 seconds long, because that's where, if there was a potential case on the line, that's where you lost it, right? So I'll give you an example. I talked to, you know who this is. I talked to an attorney about this a couple of months ago, and I said, just start there. Just check in and see. Most firms, intake is not this burning fire that shows up on Monday morning that everybody jumps on and says, we got to figure this out, like a, deadline that's missed, or a hearing, or a, motion or mediation or something. It's in the back of everybody's mind. And unless it's brought to the forefront, you would just assume that there's nothing wrong. I said, just do this. Just pop in the dashboard and just listen to some calls. So if y'all are listening to this podcast right now and you already have a call tracking metrics, call rail, something like that, if you haven't just taken, you don't have to set up some sort of formal system to evaluate them. Just pop into the dashboard and play calls. You could even limit it to the first time callers. It makes it a lot easier. Just listen to how things are going. And it's not anything on your team. It's just a disconnect from how people are trained versus what the expectations that you set are, the standards that you have for cases. So this attorney, a few months ago, I said, pop in and just listen to some calls. And he called me back 2 days later and he goes, David, you were absolutely right about the phone call thing, man. He's like, I cannot believe what I just heard. And I said, what happened? He says, I just heard my team just blow it on a pretty big case. And kind of got the call got passed around to two people, and an intake person wasn't available, so they just kind of took a message and it sounded like a McDonald's operator, basically. No empathy, just kind of somebody taking a message down. And I said, oh, what kind of case was it? He said it was a birth injury case that probably is a $20 million case. And we looked into it and, listened to the recording together, and it was a very legit lead. And I said, man, how many calls did you have to listen to before you found this one? And he said, it was the first call that I've ever listened to in my law firm. And this guy's been practicing 20 plus years. And my heart just sunk, because I went, oh God. See, I managed a call center before I ever went to work for David. I managed a call center. So looking at, call volume and staffing and processes and auditing and all that kind of stuff is very natural for me. And it's just not if you haven't, been in that business before. You're really not exposed to how differently different people would handle what many people would seem is the same task.
So what have you found is the number one reason that law firms are losing out on leads, that they're missing good leads that they shouldn't be?
We have we're going on a list. I've got over 101 so far. 101 parts of lead leak. I'll probably do a lead magnet for it, actually.
That will get a good ebook.
Yeah. And there's a few main areas. One is technical difficulties with calls, emails, and all that, and the process, the operational logistics of how those things are transferred. So we had a firm that did $20 million in revenue, and I went and audited their calls because they said their sign-ups were low. And I pulled a list of just the new callers for the prior week, and found there was something in their system that was causing all of their calls to route after a certain amount of time, route to this one paralegal's voicemail. And it was when they were remote. So she didn't even know she was getting all these voicemails to her phone. So I did a 7-day analysis, and 50% of their calls were lost to either just a random hang up that their phone system was doing, or they would send to this one person's voicemail that wasn't checking them. This is a law firm's doing $20 million, and 50% of their calls are just going into the ether. And even worse, they didn't realize it until the nerd that runs their website went to try to explain why their leads are down, right? I was like, your leads, it's not the site. It's really a lot of where the service came from. So technical issues, not having a central software to manage and track where things are going, And then probably the biggest area is just operational inefficiencies. So a common setup in a multi-partner law firm is, let's say it's PI firm. One person does the general PI, another guy's the med mal guy, another one does the car wrecks, and another one does the workers' comp, right? So their intake process, which sort of just developed naturally over the years, was you answer the phone. What happened? I got in a wreck. Okay, that's Sally's case. Forward it to Sally, and Sally will do the intake. Or I, got hurt at work. Oh, that's Jimmy's case. And so they have a very disconnected set of standards where Sally just might have a lot on her plate right now and go, no, we can't really take that case. Now, if all the partners were sitting down, they would say, well, that really would be like that would cross out the threshold. Or maybe if we evaluated all of our turn downs at the end of the month, we'd go, shoot, we really have the capacity to add an associate or two. If they actually had a central place where they were tracking all of that.
Yeah.
The other thing is just operational disconnect. So we saw a firm that had a brain injury case. They got a brain injury lead and they referred it to the bar association. And the way that the way that happened is they had a new associate who had worked there for 2 weeks, and a lead came in on a Sunday morning, and the person said, I won't say the specifics, but they said, basically, my child was injured at a pool in a hotel and is in ICU with a traumatic, with a brain injury, but he's surviving. And they said where it happened. The associate called. I think he was trying to show that he was on the ball and he's, new at work. He's trying real hard. He called within 20 minutes of that lead coming in on a Sunday morning. He called. The mother said where it had happened, and it was about a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive over the state line from the state that they practice in. Mm-hmm. And the associate heard that and went, oh, okay, well, we only do cases down here. And so I can look the number up for you. So he looked up that state's bar association and he gave the referral out, and it's probably 200 miles away. It wasn't across the street, but like I'm
referral fees.
Yeah, exactly. I'm randomly looking at my phone that morning and I saw that lead come across. I texted the managing attorney and I said, did y'all mean to refer the brain injury drowning case to the bar association? And they freaked out. They were like, what are you talking about? And then I told them to refer the managing attorney dropped their entire day, drove 6.5 hours round trip, signed the mom up, and came back. And when they came back, I said, you realize the disconnect between how one person in the firm handled that, right? 10-minute phone conversation and give them the number for the bar, versus the managing attorney dropped their Sunday, drove across the state and signed that case up. And so one of the biggest problems that they had there was their operational process for handling leads was a live chat or a contact form comes in, and they wanted everybody in the firm to get it. And then they would play hopscotch they would reply all onto who's going to reply to that. Oh, hey, I got that one. So every time a lead came into the firm, and this is a volume firm, 12 people are getting CC'd on an email to say, hey, I'll get that one. It was just chaos. But that,
I always got to say, when everybody's accountable, nobody's accountable.
Yeah. That's
you
very much.
You got to have one person accountable.
That's very much true. And yeah, if it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. And another thing you say, which is you got to inspect what you I'm gonna get
People
it wrong.
Respect what you inspect.
Once you inspect, yeah. And so if there's not a process to then audit the inquiries that come in afterwards, then you won't really find out that opportunity got missed. So just this morning we had a call that showed up in an audit where it was a wreck and the person had a broken hand, fractured wrist. They were not at fault, but they had a small gap in treatment. But the at-fault driver was his tractor trailer. And due to the gap in treatment, the intake person turned the case down. The issue there really is that the firm doesn't have a good set of criteria or contingency, criteria to say like, yeah, if there's a gap in treatment, will turn down unless the damages are really high. The, coverage is, you got $1 million of coverage that can make up for, a small gap in treatment on such a serious, clear liability case. Where tire shredded off of a.
I've always said, David, I used to do a lot of consulting work. I go to do like 2 or 3 days with a firm, and I always knew I would be worth the money they pay because everybody has got leakage, serious leakage in their intake department. If I couldn't do nothing else, I know I could help them there because everybody thinks it's great until you show them it's not great.
Yeah. And
you got to prove it to them because they really think that they're fine.
Yeah. It's really, there's nothing else really like it. I mean, just imagine if you ran a store and you didn't have, a loss prevention person, and you ran a retail store, a Belk or a JCPenney's or something. You had nobody paying attention to our employees walking off with stuff at the end of the day. Are we losing stuff in the warehouse? I mean, you have to watch that stuff. And what we found is it's never been that the people on the ground taking the calls and the support staff in the firm are, avoiding responsibility or, sabotaging the firm's opportunities. It's just that you need to take people along the path and show them your standards and show them the way. And, something like that truck wreck, getting it referred to the bar, that person thought that they were doing what they should have done because of the gap in treatment. But in reality, the managing attorney of that firm confirmed that, yeah, they would have signed that case and evaluated it, afterwards.
Yeah. Well, look, this has been great. We're running out of time. So if anybody wants to get up, this has been very informative too. I've asked some questions that I've always wanted to ask and never, for whatever reason, I didn't do it. But so if somebody wants to get up with you or discuss this further, I know you like to talk this stuff because I talk to you about it a lot. What's the best way for them to get up with you, David?
Oh yeah. Check out our website, wedrivecases.com, or anywhere on social media at wedrivecases on every platform, or just friend me on Facebook. I'm on there either talking shop or showing off pictures of my kids. So
absolutely.
As long as you
I hope your kids are doing great and your wife.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they're a handful.
Good deal. Good deal. Oh yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.